ignored her grandmother's advice and went to the basement alone. When she turned on the light, she couldn't believe what she saw. It was dark, cold, and rainy outside. 13-year-old Lily was sitting on the sofa in the living room watching TV. Suddenly, she heard a loud bang on the roof. The power went out and the TV turned off. Lily didn't like this at all. She wanted to turn the TV back on. When she went over to the switch, she realized that it wasn't just the TV that had turned off. The lights were also out. And if that wasn't bad enough, the front door suddenly opened by itself. A strong wind came in and closed the door again. Lily was now really scared. She didn't want to sit there in the dark and wait for whatever was out there to come inside. So she decided to go into the kitchen to get a flashlight. When she turned on the light in the kitchen, she could finally see better. Lily grabbed a flashlight from the drawer and headed out into the hallway. Why to rewire a wire? Lily turned around quickly and gasped. It was her grandmother. She looked very serious and was holding a Bible in her hand. "Grandma, is everything okay?" asked Lily, still holding the flashlight. "Why are you down here? You should be in bed." Her grandmother walked up to Lily and took the flashlight from her. Then they both stood there in silence for a moment. Lily was getting more and more nervous. Finally, her grandmother broke the silence. "Stay away from the basement," she said, handing the flashlight back to Lily. "I don't want you going down there." "But why?" "What's down there?" asked Lily. "There's nothing down there," her grandmother replied. "You shouldn't be curious about it either." "But Grandma, I'm curious, and I want to know what's down there." "You're just scaring me," Lily said. She knew her grandmother always told her scary stories about the old house, but she was tired of it. Her grandmother sighed and shook her head. "No, you don't understand," she said. "You can't go down there. I forbid it." "Okay, I won't tell you again," said Lily. She crossed her arms and looked away. She didn't want to argue with her grandmother, so she turned around and walked back to her room. She closed the door behind her and tried to forget about the basement. When Lily was tucked under her blankets in bed, she thought about what her grandmother had said. She couldn't stop thinking about the basement. Now she was even more curious than before. Why did her grandmother keep talking about the basement, and why didn't she want Lily to go down there? Was there something dangerous hiding in the basement? Maybe there was a wild animal or even a serial killer. Well, Lily would soon find out because she didn't listen to her grandmother and went down to the basement anyway. The next morning after breakfast, Lily went to the basement. She didn't know what she expected to find down there, but it certainly wasn't what she actually saw. In fact, it almost looked like a crime scene. There were some old suitcases and boxes stacked up in the corner, a dusty workbench, and an old rusty safe. But that wasn't what caught Lily's attention. No, she was staring at a small wooden chest that sat right in the middle of the basement floor. It looked ancient and had strange symbols carved into the lid. Lily had never seen this chest before, but for some reason, she felt drawn to it. She walked closer and put her hand on top of the chest. As she did, she heard a creaking sound. Startled, she pulled her hand back. But then the creaking continued. It seemed to be coming from inside the chest. Curious, Lily reached out again and pushed open the lid. Inside was a pile of old yellowed letters tied together with a faded ribbon. Lily carefully lifted them out and began to read. The letters were written in a beautiful flowing script and told the story of two lovers who lived in the house many years ago. William and Elizabeth were deeply in love, but their happiness was short-lived. Elizabeth became sick and died, and William was so heartbroken that he took his own life. According to the letters, their bodies were buried in the basement beneath the very chest Lily was sitting on. As she read the last letter, tears streamed down Lily's face. She felt a deep sadness for these two lost souls and couldn't help but wonder if their spirits were haunting the house. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and Lily could have sworn she heard Elizabeth's voice whispering her name. Startled, Lily jumped up from the chest and ran to the stairs. As she climbed the steps, she felt a cold hand grab her ankle and pull her back. Terrified, Lily screamed and tried to free herself from the grip, but it was no use. She was being dragged back down the stairs and toward the chest. Struggling to free herself from the invisible force, Lily stumbled and fell onto the cold basement floor. As she lay there gasping for breath, she saw a shadowy figure standing over her. It was a woman dressed in a long white gown. Her face was pale and lifeless, and her eyes were hollow sockets of darkness. "Elizabeth," whispered Lily, recognizing the ghost from the letters. Elizabeth reached out a finger and traced a line down Lily's cheek. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a hollow echo. "Help me find William." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Where is he?" she asked. Elizabeth gestured to the chest with a trembling finger. "He's in there," she whispered. "Please, I want to be with him again." With trembling hands, Lily opened the chest. Inside, nestled among the old letters, was a small wooden box. It was ornately carved and locked with a small iron padlock. As Lily stared at the box, she felt a surge of determination. She had to help Elizabeth find William, no matter the cost. First, she needed to find the key to the box. Lily searched the basement frantically, but couldn't find the key anywhere. Just when she was about to give up, she noticed a loose floorboard. She knelt down and pried up the board. Hidden underneath was a small wooden box, and when she opened it, she found the key. It was made of an old rusty metal and looked like it hadn't been used in centuries. With the key in hand, Lily raced back to the chest and inserted it into the padlock. The lock clicked open, and Lily lifted the lid. Inside was a pile of old yellowed letters tied together with a faded ribbon. Lily carefully lifted them out and began to read. The letters were written in a beautiful flowing script and told the story of two lovers who lived in the house many years ago. William and Elizabeth were deeply in love, but their happiness was short-lived. Elizabeth became sick and died, and William was so heartbroken that he took his own life. According to the letters, their bodies were buried in the basement beneath the very chest Lily was sitting on. As she read the last letter, tears streamed down Lily's face. She felt a deep sadness for these two lost souls and couldn't help but wonder if their spirits were haunting the house. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and Lily could have sworn she heard Elizabeth's voice whispering her name. Startled, Lily jumped up from the chest and ran to the stairs. As she climbed the steps, she felt a cold hand grab her ankle and pull her back. Terrified, Lily screamed and tried to free herself from the grip, but it was no use. She was being dragged back down the stairs and toward the chest. Struggling to free herself from the invisible force, Lily stumbled and fell onto the cold basement floor. As she lay there gasping for breath, she saw a shadowy figure standing over her. It was a woman dressed in a long white gown. Her face was pale and lifeless, and her eyes were hollow sockets of darkness. "Elizabeth," whispered Lily, recognizing the ghost from the letters. Elizabeth reached out a finger and traced a line down Lily's cheek. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a hollow echo. Help me find William." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Where is he?" she asked. Elizabeth gestured to the chest with a trembling finger. "He's in there," she whispered. "Please, I want to be with him again." With trembling hands, Lily opened the chest. Inside, nestled among the old letters, was a small wooden box. It was ornately carved and locked with a small iron padlock. As Lily stared at the box, she felt a surge of determination. She had to help Elizabeth find William, no matter the cost. First, she needed to find the key. Lily searched the basement frantically but couldn't find the key anywhere. Just when she was about to give up, she noticed a loose floorboard. She knelt down and pried up the board. Hidden underneath was a small wooden box. When she opened it, she found the key. It was made of an old rusty metal and looked like it hadn't been used in centuries. With the key in hand, Lily raced back to the chest and inserted it into the padlock. The lock clicked open, and Lily lifted the lid. Inside was a pile of old yellowed letters tied together with a faded ribbon. Lily carefully lifted them out and began to read. The letters were written in a beautiful flowing script and told the story of two lovers who lived in the house many years ago. William and Elizabeth were deeply in love, but their happiness was short-lived. Elizabeth became sick and died, and William was so heartbroken that he took his own life. According to the letters, their bodies were buried in the basement beneath the very chest Lily was sitting on. As she read the last letter, tears streamed down Lily's face. She felt a deep sadness for these two lost souls and couldn't help but wonder if their spirits were haunting the house. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and Lily could have sworn she heard Elizabeth's voice whispering her name. Startled, Lily jumped up from the chest and ran to the stairs. As she climbed the steps, she felt a cold hand grab her ankle and pull her back. Terrified, Lily screamed and tried to free herself from the grip, but it was no use. She was being dragged back down the stairs and toward the chest. Struggling to free herself from the invisible force, Lily stumbled and fell onto the cold basement floor. As she lay there gasping for breath, she saw a shadowy figure standing over her. It was a man this time. He was tall and thin, with a sad, haunted expression on his face. "William," whispered Lily, recognizing him from the letters. William nodded sadly and held out a hand to her. "Come with me," he whispered. "We can be together forever." Lily hesitated for a moment, torn between her desire to help William and her fear of the dark, cold presence that seemed to be enveloping her. But as she looked into William's sad eyes, she knew she had to help him. Taking a deep breath, Lily reached out and took William's hand. As soon as her fingers touched his cold, decaying flesh, a jolt of energy surged through her body. She could feel William's love and sadness, his longing to be reunited with Elizabeth. With a newfound determination, Lily pulled on William's hand, and together they walked toward the stairs. As they climbed the stairs, Lily could feel the weight of the basement door pressing down on her, trying to hold them back. But she knew she had to keep moving forward. When they reached the top of the stairs, Lily turned to William and smiled sadly. "I'll find you and Elizabeth," she promised. "You'll be together again." With that, Lily turned and walked away, leaving the basement door open behind her. As the days passed, Lily threw herself into finding William and Elizabeth. She scoured the local cemetery searching for their graves, but their names were nowhere to be found. Just when she was about to give up hope, she met an old woman who lived in a nearby cottage. The woman had a kind face, and Lily felt drawn to her. "Looking for the graves of William and Elizabeth," Lily said. "They lived in this house many years ago." The old woman's eyes twinkled with wisdom. "Ah, yes, I know their story," she said. "They're buried in the whispering pines, where the wind carries their secrets." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "Can you take me to them?" she asked. The old woman nodded and led Lily through the woods. After a while, they arrived at a clearing. In the center was a large pine tree with a small plaque at its base. It read, "Here lies William and Elizabeth." As Lily stood there taking it all in, she felt a sense of peace come over her. She knew that William and Elizabeth were finally together again. From that day on, Lily visited the grave often, bringing flowers and sharing stories with the tree. She knew that even though their time on earth was over, their love would live on forever in the whispering pines. He helps an old lady cross the street. She changes his life. It was a cold winter day. A young man named Alex was walking home from work. It had been a long and stressful day, so he was in a rather bad mood. Suddenly, he saw an old lady struggling to cross the street. Cars were honking at her, but she couldn't move. People were rushing past her, ignoring her completely. No one wanted to help the old woman. Alex felt a pang of sympathy for her. He took a deep breath and walked over to the old lady. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked. The old lady looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Oh, thank God," she said. "Could you please help me across the street? I'm in a hurry." The old lady was so grateful to Alex for his help. She thanked him over and over again. But Alex just smiled and waved her off. "Don't mention it," he said. "It was no trouble at all." However, when Alex continued on his way, he noticed that the old lady wasn't following him. She was still standing on the sidewalk. He turned around and asked, "Ma'am, are you coming?" The old lady shook her head. "Oh no," she said. "You have no idea how much I appreciate your help, but I can't come with you. I'm sorry." The old lady tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. Alex couldn't understand what was going on. Why didn't she want to accept his help? Was she trying to test him? Is this some kind of joke? He didn't get it. "Ma'am, if you don't want to tell me why you're doing this, I'll simply take you home," Alex said. "I promise I'll take care of you." However, the old lady suddenly started crying. She fell to her knees and begged Alex to leave her alone. At this point, Alex was very worried about the old lady. He didn't know what to do, so he called the police and told them about the situation. When the officers arrived, They were able to convince the old lady to go back to her apartment with them. They also contacted a social worker who would look into the matter. After the officers and the social worker left, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He knew that he had done the right thing by helping the old lady. Even though she had been ungrateful, he couldn't bear the thought of her being alone and helpless. As he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a difference in her life, even if she didn't realize it yet. The next day, Alex couldn't stop thinking about the old lady. He couldn't get her face out of his mind, and he kept replaying their conversation over and over in his head. He knew that he should let it go, but he couldn't help but wonder what had happened to her. Had the social worker been able to help her? Was she still living in that run-down apartment? These thoughts wouldn't leave him alone. So Alex decided to go back to the apartment building where he had found the old lady. He had the address memorized, and it hadn't taken him long to find it. He knocked on the door and waited. His heart began to race. What if she wasn't home? What if he never saw her again? These thoughts raced through his mind as he heard footsteps approaching the door. When the door opened, Alex couldn't believe his eyes. It was the old lady. She looked at him and exclaimed, "Oh, you came back?" Alex managed to stammer out, I just wanted to see how you were doing." The old lady stepped aside and gestured for him to enter. Come in, she said. "I've been expecting you." Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. What did she mean by that? Had she been expecting him all along? Hi friends, welcome back to our channel. There was this kid who loved saving money. He saved up all of his pennies in a big glass jar, and one day he decided that it was full enough and that he'd like to buy himself something nice. But there was one problem. The thing is though, he didn't know what he wanted to buy. So he started looking through all of the mail that they got at home for things he might want. You know, when you get some flyers or catalogs in the mail, you can go through them and see if there's anything that catches your eye. So he found one company that sold model cars, and he thought, maybe I'll get myself a model car. He looked at their catalog and saw one that he really liked, but it cost $50. He was missing about $10. So he kept looking through the mail to see if there was something else that would catch his eye. He didn't want to keep asking his parents for more money, because they always told him that if he wanted something, then he should work hard to get it. And that's exactly what he did. He started mowing lawns, shoveling snow, and doing other odd jobs around town, until he earned enough money to buy himself a nice gift. When he had the full amount, he took out the jar with all of his pennies and brought it into the kitchen. His mom and dad were sitting at the table having breakfast. He proudly told them that he was going to buy himself something nice. And they, of course, were very supportive. They helped him count out $50 from the jar and gave him the rest of the change. They even offered to take him to the store so that he could pick out whatever he wanted. But the thing is, while he was walking toward the front door, he passed by an elderly man sitting on the porch across the street. And this man looked sad, so the boy stopped and asked him if everything was okay. The man said, "Well, I need to get to the hospital to visit my sick wife, but I don't have any money to pay for the cab fare." The boy instantly felt sorry for him and told him, "Don't worry, I can take you." Then he turned to his parents and said, "Mom, Dad, I think I've changed my mind about what I want to do." They were confused, so he continued, "I'd like to give you this money instead. Please give it to that man so he can go visit his wife at the hospital." His parents were very proud of him and thanked him for his kindness. They gave the old man the money and wished him luck, and the boy asked his dad, "Can we go to the store now?" But his dad told him, "You just made someone very happy today, son, and that should make you happy. There's no need to buy yourself something expensive now." The boy thought about it for a moment. Then he replied, "You're right, Dad. It feels good to know that I helped someone today. Maybe helping others is better than buying myself something new." He walked to school that day thinking about how good it felt to help someone in need. And then he had an idea. The next day when he went to school, he brought the exact same jar with him and sat down next to a kid who was collecting donations for charity. This kid was collecting money for an animal shelter, and after hearing about the great cause, most of the students put some money into the jar. Even the teachers donated some money. When they finished, the boy told his classmates that they should feel good about themselves because they'd be helping out homeless animals. One of his classmates replied, "Yeah, but I'm only giving what I could spare. I still have plenty of money left over." The boy simply smiled and said nothing. After school, he went up to that same classmate and said, "Hey, remember that jar you put your money into earlier? I think someone forgot something." The boy opened the jar and pretended to look for something. Then he said, "Here it is." He pulled out $1 and handed it to his classmate. The boy was confused, so he asked, "What's this for?" The boy simply replied, "It's a thank you gift for giving what you could spare. Even though it wasn't much, you still gave something, and that means a lot. That's why I'm giving you this." His classmate took the $1, still confused, but he said thank you anyways. The boy then went to the next kid and did the exact same thing. He gave each student $1 from the jar and told them that it was a thank you gift for donating what they could to help out the animals. After he gave away all the money, he wrote a note and taped it to the jar. It read, "Thank you for donating. Helping others feels good." Then he took the empty jar home. That night he was eating dinner with his family and they were talking about what he had done at school. His mom asked him, "Why did you give those kids money from the jar?" He replied, "I wanted to show them that even small gifts can make people feel appreciated. If they could spare some money, then they should feel good about it. And if I wanted to say thank you, then I could do that too." His dad nodded in approval and said, "You did well today. Your actions can definitely influence other people. And that means that what you did today could end up making many other kids feel good about themselves, which means that they'll start doing good things too." The boy thought about this for a moment. Then he asked, "Does that mean that I can ask you too for some more money for another jar?" They both laughed and agreed that he could use an empty jar again. And so, he started saving up money again, waiting for another chance to help someone in need. And that's the end of the story. Now tell me, friends, what would you do if you had a jar full of money? Would you buy yourself something nice, or would you give it to someone else? Let me know in the comments. And that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button so that we know you loved it. We'll see you again next time. Bye. A young boy approached the security guard at the prison gate and handed him a letter. "Tell my dad I love him," the boy said to the guard before walking away. The guard was taken aback by the child's innocence, and his words echoed in his ears long after the boy had left. The guard, whose name was Jackson, was used to dealing with hardened criminals, not innocent children. He looked down at the letter in his hands, its simple words striking a chord within him. He knew he couldn't just deliver the letter like any other piece of mail. This one carried the weight of innocence, hope, and perhaps a bit of naivety. He walked up to Warden Hayes, a stern man with a no-nonsense attitude. "Sir, we have a letter for inmate number 4789, Jackson said, trying to keep a straight face. He knew that inmate 4789 was serving a life sentence for a crime he swore he didn't commit. A crime that many believed was politically motivated. Warden Hayes sighed. "Inmate Jackson," he said, looking up from his paperwork, "has received countless letters over the years. Most end up as crumpled pieces of paper on the floor. He doesn't get to read them." He paused, looking at the young boy's letter. "Why don't you go ahead and read it?" Jackson suggested. Hayes reluctantly agreed. As Jackson began reading the letter aloud, a hush fell over the room. It was filled with such innocent joy that even the guards present couldn't help but listen. "Dear Daddy," the letter began, "I drew you a picture in school today, but it didn't look like you. Emma said mine will be better because she knows what Daddy looks like. Can I come visit you? Please say yes. We can color together. Love, Johnny." Jackson stopped reading. The letter had been unsigned, but the drawing attached was clear evidence of who it was from. It was a crude but heartwarming picture of a stick figure family. 2 stick figures holding hands, and a bigger stick figure in the middle, labeled Daddy. Hayes felt a lump forming in his throat. He knew that inmate 4789, whose real name was Thomas, had been sentenced unjustly. But in all these years, he had never seen the man crack. Thomas was known for being stoic, never complaining or causing trouble. He was an exemplary prisoner. Hayes looked at Jackson, his face pale. "Let's go see Thomas," he said, surprising himself with his sudden change of heart. Jackson nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. He knew how much this meant to the little boy who had delivered the letter earlier. They found Thomas in the prison yard, his face etched with the hardships he had endured. His eyes, however, still held a glimmer of hope. As Jackson approached him, he could see the years etched into the man's face, the burden of his life sentence weighing heavily on his shoulders. Despite this, there was a gentleness about him that made Jackson feel uneasy about delivering the news. Mr. Hayes wants to see you, Jackson said, hoping he didn't sound too abrupt. Thomas turned, his eyes widening slightly when he saw the guard approaching him. He stood up, his gaze fixed on Warden Hayes. Warden Hayes cleared his throat. "Thomas," he began, his voice unusually soft, "we need to talk." They walked in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Thomas's mind raced, wondering if it was finally time for his appeal to be heard. When they reached the office, Hayes sat down, gesturing for Thomas to do the same. "Thomas," he started, "you have a visitor?" Thomas's head shot up, his eyes searching the warden's face for answers. Before Hayes could elaborate, the door opened and in walked a young boy, his eyes wide with anticipation. "Daddy!" The boy cried out and ran towards Thomas, throwing his arms around the man's legs. Thomas, taken aback by the sudden intrusion, hesitated for a moment before scooping the boy off the ground. He held Johnny close, his gruff exterior melting away as he buried his face in his son's hair. "Oh, Johnny," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. The last time Thomas had cradled his son was during one of his rare visits 5 years ago. Back then, Johnny had been too young to remember much, but now he was here again, reminding his father of the love that still existed outside the cold prison walls. Hayes watched them, his heart heavy with the weight of the scene. He excused himself and left them alone, allowing father and son to reconnect. As the hours passed, Jackson watched the interaction between Thomas and his son. He couldn't help but feel a pang of envy at the bond they shared. He had heard stories about Thomas, tales of a man who had never lost hope, and now he was witnessing it firsthand. Thomas was telling Johnny stories about his childhood, his eyes twinkling with mischief as he imitated a playful puppy. Johnny in turn was hanging on every word, his imagination running wild. Thomas would pause, looking at his son with a deep sense of pride. In that moment, he realized that his greatest accomplishment was not the life he had lived, but the son he had raised. "Daddy, can we come back tomorrow?" Johnny asked, his eyes shining with hope. Thomas looked at his son, his heart aching at the innocence in those big blue eyes. He knew he couldn't crush his son's hope, not today. "Of course, son," Thomas said, forcing a smile. "Of course we can." He knew it wasn't that simple. Prison rules were strict and visitors were limited. Still, he couldn't bear to dampen his son's spirits. Later that day, as Johnny was preparing to leave, he hugged his father tightly. "I love you, Daddy," he whispered. Thomas returned the hug, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you too, son, more than anything." When Johnny was gone, Thomas slumped against the wall, his emotions catching up with him. He felt a surge of love, hope, and a deep sense of loss. He loved his son more than anything, but how could he convey that in a way that wouldn't hurt the boy? Hayes entered the room, his face grave. "Thomas," he began, his voice soft, "we need to talk." Thomas nodded, knowing that his fatherly facade had crumbled. Hayes sat down, looking at Thomas with a mix of sympathy and respect. "Thomas, I've reviewed your case files and I want to apologize." He paused, searching for the right words. "I believe you are innocent." Thomas looked up, his eyes filled with disbelief. Could it be true? After all these years, someone was finally acknowledging his innocence? Hayes continued, "I know this won't bring back the past years, but I want to make things right. Starting today, I'm going to personally see that you receive a fair trial." Thomas felt a surge of gratitude. Finally, he could prove his innocence once and for all. Hayes said, "In concerning your son, I'll ensure he can visit whenever he wants." Relief washed over Thomas. Could only hope his son wouldn't resent him for the years he had lost. Days turned into weeks, and Warden Hayes kept his promise. He arranged for Thomas to be moved to a more comfortable cell and allowed Johnny to visit as often as possible. The sight of his son's smiling face brought new hope to Thomas's life. One day, Johnny arrived with a drawing for his father. It was a picture of a prison with a bright light shining through the bars. "What does the light mean?" Thomas asked, intrigued. "It's the light of hope," Johnny replied, his eyes shining. "The hope that you'll come back home to us." Thomas felt a lump forming in his throat. He had never felt such overwhelming love and appreciation. As the weeks passed, Thomas's trial date approached. The media had picked up his story. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the wrongfully convicted man who had spent years in prison. On the day of the trial, Thomas, dressed in a crisp white shirt, stood before the jury. He looked at the faces staring back at him, trying to discern their thoughts. Would they believe his story? Would they see the truth? As the trial progressed, Thomas's hope grew. Evidence presented pointed to his innocence, and he felt confident that justice would finally be served. Finally, the jury returned with a verdict. Not guilty, they shouted, and Thomas's heart soared. He was free. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed, and reporters shouted questions. But Thomas was only focused on one thing: getting home to his son. When he finally stepped into his house, he was greeted by the familiar sight of a crayon drawing on the refrigerator. It was another picture of a stick figure family, this time with all the stick figures holding hands and a big bright sun shining down on them. Underneath the drawing were the words, "Welcome home, Daddy." Tears welled up in Thomas's eyes as he knelt down beside the refrigerator. He picked up the drawing, clutching it close. In that moment, he knew that no amount of prison time could dim the love of family. A wealthy couple who ignored a beggar outside their restaurant was shocked when they learned that he was their former teacher. They had no idea that he was living in such poverty. David and Samantha were a wealthy couple. They owned a few successful businesses together and had millions of dollars in the bank. The two had everything they could ever want. But there was one thing that bothered David, and that was the amount of beggars that were always outside his restaurant. He tried everything to get rid of them, but nothing worked, so he just gave up. One day, David and Samantha were having lunch at their favorite table by the window, when suddenly a beggar appeared. The beggar sat down right in front of them. He looked very dirty, and the smell of alcohol and stale waste was coming from him. "Get out of here," David shouted. "You're disgusting." The beggar looked at him and replied, "I'm sorry, but I'm very hungry and would appreciate some food." David rolled his eyes and turned to Samantha. "Can you believe this? He wants us to give him food." Samantha wasn't really comfortable with the situation either, but she didn't want her husband to be rude. Of course not, but maybe we could just give him something. "Look at him. He must be starving." "No way," David replied. "He can get out of here." Before Samantha could say anything else, David got up, grabbed the man by the collar of his shirt and dragged him outside. "Here, get out of my restaurant." The beggar stumbled out of the restaurant and collapsed on the ground in front of everyone. He started begging again, but David walked away without giving him anything. David and Samantha went back to their table and continued eating. They acted like nothing had happened. Other customers stared at them in disapproval, but the couple didn't care, finished their meal, paid the bill, and drove home. They felt good about themselves because they had stood up for themselves against the beggars. But little did they know that they would regret it soon. The next morning, David woke up early to start working. He checked his phone and saw that he had received an email from one of his employees. It was about the new marketing campaign that they had discussed the day before. "Good job. Let's keep up the good work," he replied. Then he got up and went to the bathroom to take a shower. As he came out of the shower, he saw another message on his phone. It was from his son. "Dad, are you coming to pick me up from school today?" "Of course not, son. You know, Mom and I don't have time for this nonsense." "You can take the bus home," he replied. His son was upset, but he didn't reply. David changed his clothes and went downstairs to eat breakfast. Just then, his wife came into the kitchen. She looked very upset. "What's wrong?" David asked. "I just talked to your parents and they invited us over for dinner tonight. We haven't seen them in a while, so I wanted to go," she said. David thought for a moment. "Yeah, okay, sure," he replied. He didn't really like his in-laws, but he knew he had to make an effort if he wanted his marriage to last. "Why don't we stop by the grocery store first? I think we should bring them something nice," she said. "Yeah, okay," he replied. When they arrived at the grocery store, Samantha went inside to look for some wine. Meanwhile, David stayed in the car. Just then, a man walked up to the car and knocked on the window. David lowered the window and asked, "Can I help you?" "Excuse me, sir, do you have a light?" the man asked. David looked at him and replied, "No, I don't." The man nodded and walked away. David shook his head and started laughing. "Beggars are everywhere," he said. Just then, Samantha came out of the store with a bottle of wine in her hands. "I'll put this in the trunk," she said. Samantha was putting the bottle of wine in the trunk. She heard a voice. "Excuse me, ma'am, could you spare some change?" She turned around and saw the same man from earlier standing in front of her. "I'm sorry, but I don't carry cash," she replied. "It's all right, ma'am. Do you happen to have a lighter?" she asked. "Oh yeah, sure," Samantha replied. She took a lighter from her purse and handed it to the man. "Thank you, ma'am," he said. He looked at her for a moment and then asked, "Do you mind if I ask you something?" "Sure. What is it?" she asked. "You know who I am?" he asked. Samantha thought for a moment. "No, I'm sorry, but I don't," she replied. "Well, I'm your 6th grade math teacher, Mr. Williams," he said. Samantha's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh my God, really?" she exclaimed. "Yes," Mr. Williams replied. "You are one of my favorite students. We're always so smart and eager to learn," he said. Samantha smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Williams," she said. "It was a pleasure being your student." Just then David came out of the store. "Samantha, let's go," he said. Samantha turned to Mr. Williams and said, "I'm sorry, but we're in a hurry." "It was lovely seeing you again." "It was nice seeing you too, Samantha," Mr. Williams replied. "Wait here for a moment, please," David said. He took a couple of steps back and pulled out his wallet. He took out a $100 bill and handed it to Mr. Williams. "Here, take this," he said. Mr. Williams looked at the money and then at David. "Are you serious?" he asked. "I don't need your money. I used to be your teacher. I've taught you some valuable lessons that I hope you'll never forget," he said. David's face turned red with anger. "How dare you ask for money after all these years?" he shouted. "I don't need your money, old man. Get out of here before I call the cops," he said. Mr. Williams' eyes filled with tears. He looked at Samantha and whispered, "I'm sorry I bothered you, Samantha. I didn't know you would treat me this way," he said. With that, he turned around and walked away. Samantha felt terrible about how her husband had treated Mr. Williams. She knew that he wasn't perfect, but she had hoped that he would have more respect for their former teacher. As they drove home, Samantha couldn't stop thinking about Mr. Williams. She knew that he was a good man who didn't deserve to be treated the way her husband had treated him. She decided that she needed to do something to make it up to him. The next day, Samantha went back to the grocery store. She bought a basket of food and went to find Mr. Williams. She didn't know where he lived, so she went to the local soup kitchen. She had heard that he often volunteered there. When she arrived, she asked around until someone told her that he was in the back room. She knocked on the door, and when someone opened it, she asked, "Is Mr. Williams here?" "Yes, he is," the person replied. "Could I speak to him for a moment?" Samantha asked. "Sure," the person said. They walked into the back room, and Samantha saw Mr. Williams sitting at a table. "Mr. Williams," she said. "Samantha," he replied, surprised. "I just wanted to apologize for my husband's behavior yesterday," she said. "It was uncalled for and I'm sorry." "Oh, it's all right, Samantha," Mr. Williams replied. "I understand that he doesn't remember me, but I remember him. He was always a kind and respectful student, and I knew he would amount to something someday." "Thank you, Mr. Williams," Samantha said. "I wanted to give you this," she said. She handed him the basket of food. "I know this isn't much, but I hope it helps," she said. Mr. Williams looked at the basket and then at Samantha. "Thank you, Samantha," he said. "This is very kind of you, but I don't need any food. I'm already taken care of here," he said. "Oh," Samantha said. "Well, then how about some money?" "I insist," she said. Mr. Williams shook his head. "No, thank you, Samantha. I don't need any money either. I have enough," he said. Samantha knew that he was being modest, but she wasn't going to push the issue. "All right, Mr. Williams, if you're sure," she said. "Just promise me you won't let this get you down," she said. "I promise," Mr. Williams replied. Samantha left the soup kitchen feeling better about herself. She had done all she could to make it up to Mr. Williams, and now she could move on. A rich man who judged others by their clothes ended up behind bars because of one man's style. There was once a very rich man who loved to wear expensive clothes. He would always buy the finest suits and the most elegant shirts. And he wasn't just rich, he was also arrogant and selfish. One day, while walking down the street, he saw a homeless man wearing a very stylish coat. It was an old, worn-out coat, but it was stylish in its own way. The rich man had never seen anything like it before. "Where did you get that coat?" he asked the homeless man. "I found it in a dumpster," the homeless man replied. "It was in a pile of old clothes. But to me, it's more than just a coat. It's a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, a little bit of style can make all the difference." The rich man didn't understand what the homeless man meant, but he was intrigued by the coat. "How much do you want for it?" he asked. "I don't want to sell it," the homeless man replied. "It's not for sale." The rich man was shocked. Couldn't believe that someone would turn down a chance to make some quick cash. "What do you mean it's not for sale? How much do you want for it?" he asked again, this time offering more money. But the homeless man was adamant. "I don't want to sell it," he said. "It's not for sale." The rich man was furious. Couldn't believe that someone would be so stupid as to turn down his offer. So he did something crazy. He took off his own coat and threw it at the homeless man. "Here," he said, "take this. I'm sure it'll look great on you." Then he walked away, feeling very proud of himself. He had taken care of the homeless man, and he had done it in his own way. A few days later, the rich man was walking down the same street when he saw a group of men gathered around a dumpster. He stopped to see what was going on and saw the same homeless man from before rummaging through the pile of clothes. The rich man couldn't believe his eyes. "That's my coat," he said. "I threw it in the trash a few days ago." The homeless man looked up and smiled. "Ah, so you found my coat," he said. "I knew you'd come back for it." The rich man was confused. "What do you mean? You knew I'd come back for it?" The homeless man nodded. "Of course," he said. "I knew you'd come back for it because you left your name and address in the pocket." The rich man's face turned pale. He had never been so embarrassed in his life. He had been so arrogant and selfish, and now he was paying the price. The homeless man stood up and walked towards the rich man. "You know," he said, "I think we need to have a talk." The rich man tried to run, but it was too late. The homeless man grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and pulled him into the dumpster. "Help me," the rich man cried. "Help me," but no one could hear him. The homeless man run family, but they didn't listen. They were too busy arguing with each other. The rich man was trapped in the dumpster, and there was only one way out. He had to listen to the homeless man and learn what it was like to be judged by his clothes. From that day on, the rich man never judged anyone by their clothes again. He learned that everyone has a story to tell, and some stories are more important than others. The rich man's arrogance and selfishness had blinded him to the truth, but now he could see things more clearly. The homeless man had shown him the error of his ways, and he was grateful for it. A woman forgot her mom's birthday. A few hours later, there was a knock at the door. Who could it be, and what did they want? You're about to find out. It was late in the evening when a daughter came home from work. She unlocked the front door and walked inside without saying a word. She had forgotten about her mother's birthday, which was today. It was a bit of a stressful day at work. Her boss had yelled at her for making a mistake. That's why she came home so late. She looked at the clock on the wall. It was already 7:30 p.m. Her mother would probably be waiting for her to come home so they could watch their favorite show together. The daughter didn't know how long her mother had been waiting for her, but she couldn't wait any longer to tell her mom how sorry she was for forgetting her birthday. But when she walked into the kitchen, she didn't see her mom sitting at the dinner table with a piece of cake on it. Instead, the table was empty, and there was no sign of her mom anywhere. The daughter got scared. She had never been so late before. Where could her mom be? And why wasn't she home yet? As she continued looking for her mom, she noticed that the door to her mom's room was slightly open. She peeked inside and saw her mom in bed, sleeping peacefully. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to make you wait," she said quietly. But then she realized something terrible. Her mom wasn't asleep. Her mom was pale, and her breathing was very weak. The daughter immediately ran to her mom's side and shook her shoulder. "Mom, wake up. Are you okay?" she asked anxiously. But her mom didn't respond. She was still pale, and her breathing was slow. The daughter quickly called an ambulance and told them to come as fast as possible. She didn't want to lose her mom. When the ambulance arrived, the paramedics took her mom out of the house and put her on a stretcher. "Please save my mom," the daughter cried out. At the hospital, doctors did everything they could to save the woman's life, but unfortunately, they couldn't. The woman died in front of her daughter. No. The daughter felt like the whole world was crashing down on her. She couldn't believe that her mom was really gone. How could this have happened? She was supposed to be healthy. After her mom was pronounced dead, the daughter went home. She threw herself on her bed and cried her eyes out. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She knew she hadn't been the best daughter in the world. She often forgot things, and sometimes she spent so much time at work that she didn't have time for anything else. Looking back, she wished she had spent more time. Dreamed about her mom. She dreamed that her mom was standing in front of her. "Don't cry, honey. I'm proud of you." But then the dream suddenly turned into a nightmare and started chasing her around. You'll pay for what you've done, the monster screamed. The daughter woke up screaming. What a weird dream, she thought. Maybe I ate something bad before going to bed, completely forgotten her mom.